Greetings and good morning, good afternoon, great day to everybody. This is the Golden Convergence, and today we're going to be having a discussion with Brian Lee from Gildre.com. Brian, how are you doing today, buddy?
Doing great. I'll say that was one of the more epic, intros to a show that I've seen with the Golden Convergence. So the branding and everything, you've got it on point.
We're coming together, and this is I've been podcasting for a long time on various different shows, but recently, I'm just so passionate about entrepreneurship and value creation and solving problems and helping others succeed in a number of different ways that I have great conversations privately with people. Let's have some public conversations and just openly discuss what you're building, what we're working on, where we're going, what your milestones are. And I think this is a great setup for what you've been building with Gildre, because, well, you tell me, Brian, what is Gildre?
Yeah, and I agree, because I think so often nowadays founders, the need to build in public is more present than ever, because I think a lot of times you can still exist founders, building in stealth, or the stealth startup on LinkedIn and all that. And, at the end of the day, it's never been easier to create with all the AI tools that we have, right? With founders, the need for defensibility is stronger than ever. But, just being transparent about the process, I think, is one of the best things that founders can do at any stage, right? At any industry. And so Gildre, our mission was really, how do we put the room together, right? Curate that room for world-class operators, founders, people that are in primarily what we call the build to growth stage, anywhere between, first 10 customers to 5 million ARR. And how can we really build this framework and put you in the room with others that are in the same stage and beyond? And that was the mindset, coming from myself and my two co-founders, as we've all been founders before, all had the opportunities to work with founders, support founders, still do the same. And it's just, as you said, right, it's a super intoxicating space, and a space that we all love to personally also be a part of.
And when you say put them into a room together, what does that mean? Are you talking physical rooms?
It's both. Yeah, I guess you could call it a room. And I guess virtually, right? We do have in-person chapters, but the fun part is, again, how do you have the founder in, South Africa and San Diego and New York and Austin, all maybe in ed tech or all in fintech, but all building at different stages, different customers, and seeing how their customers work, again, in these different regions, but building for success together. So in some cases, it is a physical room, like if we have our Chicago event or Bay Area event, and then other cases, right, it's virtually. So trying to blend the best of both worlds together, because I believe that, and I'm sure you'd echo, and a lot would echo the same sentiment, virtual is powerful because you can meet with a lot of people you never would have had the chance to, but you also need an in-person component to balance that out as well.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I feel like just as humans, we're social beings, and it's important to kind of gather. That's why I love going to, conferences so much, especially the crypto conferences. It can be such a wonderful experience, as many people will know. And if you haven't, and if you're not familiar with, Bitcoin or crypto, definitely go check those out. In the spirit of with Gildre, you're bringing together people, and one of my mentors, it's really about mentorship too, right? Mm-hmm. and connecting and guidance, and one of my mentors talks about radical collaboration and how we set the stage, not just for win-win scenarios, but for win to the power of win scenarios. Mm. And that's this is how we become exponential, is when he akins it to a game, and it's we're all playing a game. We all have different islands that we want to get to, and we all have different action cards. And when we open ourselves up to these different action cards that we can play together, we can work together towards getting there. Mm-hmm. But the key thing is showing and telling and inviting others to collaborate with your action cards. So if you're building a startup doing AI video content generation, and another one's building a go-to-market AI solution, and another person is building a retreat center in Texas. Another one's working on regenerative agriculture. But there's ways that as long as we open ourselves up towards this, all the other founders, they want to see you succeed too. And when we know where people want to go, then we can start working together towards like supporting one another. And it feels like, Gildre, you're creating an environment for, specifically the founders who are entrepreneurs, and I'm guessing probably some investors and some mentors as well, to help to help founders take it to that next level.
Yeah, at the end of the day, right, the ecosystem is so large where you have, like you said, from private investors to institutional capital to the founders to the founders that have exited and now coming back with this seaweed snack company, right? Something completely different. And it's one of those things where as founders, it's tough to, once you get kind of pulled into that energy and that excitement, it's tough to go back out of it. And so how do you continuously keep that where it is something that typically, it's a lot of us leave these it's a privilege to be able to go into the space, but you leave these really comfortable jobs in many cases, right? To go work for, 70, 80 hours a week and pay yourself significantly less. And at the end of the day, as you said in the beginning, to hopefully create value and help people with something. It doesn't necessarily need to be, the cliche of like, oh, I'm building something that's going to change the world and it's going to make the world a better place and so on. Like, that'd be nice, right? I would say I've met plenty of founders, and again, that's not a bad thing, but like that, it's a solution that has nothing to do with that, right? But it's helping someone, whether it's a mortgage broker, right? Whether it's insurtech, whether it's a new bag of chips or flavor profile that didn't exist, right? There are things that people want and get to experience because someone went out there and took that risk and did it. And there's such a high failure rate in general with entrepreneurship, not just software, but of course with restaurants, with anything that people do and take that risk. So at the end of the day, how can we and how can people around in that circle help reduce that failure rate or increase the success rate, or at least help people not take toll on it? Can you fail fast and get back on your feet for the next one or the next one after that?
And how do you, or what are some of the milestones that you're kind of actively working on right now? Because I feel like milestone, like framing your business and understanding, especially as a founder, knowing, okay, what I'm actively doing on that long-term vision that Jeff Bezos, like, I'm going to create like, the greatest market on the planet. You don't kind of lead with that. You lead with, I'm going to sell books online. And you start from there. But from a Gildre perspective, what are kind of the milestones that you are working on, your co-founders and your community are working on right at this moment?
Yeah, the biggest thing is we're founders ourselves too, and the product that we build is ideally something that's going to be valuable, right, for long term with all the founders in our group. And so when you look at some of the things that founders typically struggle with. Sometimes a lot of it's branding and messaging, ICP, understanding all of the pieces that go into actually understanding if you have product market fit. The other piece is, all right, whether you're bootstrapped, whether you're planning on fundraising, whatever the range is, right? Like, what is my personal vision for the company? Because a lot of founders, if you're happy with a lifestyle company, phenomenal, right? You don't need to necessarily worry about raising institutional funding if it's something that you just want to grow and be able to, again, support that lifestyle. So we look at it from Gildre in a similar way. What were our three intentions of starting this? And for me, my co-founder Michael and my co-founder Tyga, again, we kind of circle back to all three of us have been involved in the space for decades, and it's something where with our founders that those pain points haven't changed. From understanding what your first 10 customers look like to your next 100 to your next 2 million in revenue, that those are things that whether we work with coaches, executive coaches, right, consultants, we work with product-based founders, we work with service-based founders, really across the board. And the milestones for us at Gildre is how can we continue to when we first launched, right, that you want to be able to help every founder, right? No matter what their Series E, whether they're, idea stage before they even have an MVP. And then I think we realized early on, a lot of our advisors and mentors and other founders in the group really kind of fit very closely into that messy middle, as we call it. And so that's been the milestone for us is can we get people out of that messy middle? And sometimes, if they're happy with the 5 million revenue, which majority of founders never get to see, that's a big win, right? If they want to scale past that, even better. If they're happy with 1 million, right, which is more than enough for one person too, then that's great. And so it's really balancing our resources and support and mentorship at Gildre to, again, what the founder needs. And that's kind of been what we've been, our focus really for the past 3 years, and defining that.
And how do you like curate the founders and the community? Like what's the process? If an entrepreneur is watching right now and they were interested in joining, is it by invite only? Is it application process? Is it just sign up and join? Do you have to pay to be part of it? What?
Yeah, great questions. And at the end of the day, right, what we're building is not like the most unique thing in the world. There are certainly other communities and incubators and accelerators and groups out there. But again, it comes down to that third place, I think, that people have been looking for forever, but right, that's kind of come up more now, especially with the addition of remote work and AI. And you always had your office, your home, right? And then whether it was church or synagogue, whatever religion, whether it was some, sports or that type of activity, community, is really just as strong as the people in it or the people surrounding you. And so for us, it's always been, we have a vetting process. We allow people to join, right? And there is a paywall because, again, we know that the people that, even at $59 a month, right, which is one of our core tiers, we're certainly not getting rich off of that, right? But the idea is, can we make it so that the people that are joining are serious about this, right? They're not just takers. We want people that are here to learn, but we want talented and knowledgeable people that can give back too from their experiences. And so within that first 10 days, we have a welcome call where, we dive into a lot of the different things that we talked about already, the pain points, your successes, right? What your milestones are, similar questions that you've asked me already today. And we really look to build that really tight relationship with the founder, because at the end of the day, right, you have groups that have thousands of people and they just kind of throw a bunch of resources on the wall. There's no way you're going to get any dedicated time for that. Or those that really hyper niche to, okay, you need to have multiple exits, you need to have multiple millions of revenue already. So for us, as we know, everyone's trying to get to a different point, and how can we spend meaningful time getting them there, right? Instead of just, the internet's free, right? You can find hundreds of thousands of resources, probably, way more through Gemini, through Claude, and then just Googling and searching. But again, they're not specialized to you as a founder, and that's kind of been our focus. And as termed, right, we get to learn a lot too. Even though I mentor for Techstars and Founder Institute and other groups, I am an expert, what I would consider maybe not even an expert, but in 2 or 3 things. If founders ask me questions and things outside of those wheelhouses, I will be the first to recommend other, more talented or people that have been in the trenches in those sections more than me. And in return, I get to learn a lot as well.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you're constantly, being immersed and surrounded by it. So do you personally interview everybody that's coming in?
Yeah, well, not just me, but yes, our 2 other co-founders, the other managing partners, and then our community manager, Eliana. And we all literally, like you said, right? Once you join, you have to have your welcome call and your kickoff call in the first week of joining. And again, it's that buy-in, right? We want to make sure not only is it a good fit for you, not that you're a good fit for us, but we're a good fit for you.
Yeah, and I mean, at $59, come on, let's be like, that's very. I've looked at some expert networks and groups that are like, $3,000 to $5,000 a year, like, for this, and if you kind of find that right balance, but as well, it's like, how do you? I just feel like we're just at this exponential age too. It's like, with solutions like Granola or Hypernote, or like, to be able to take the notes from the onboarding calls, be able to have really authentic, open, engaged discussions, but also, have our tools listening, and then being able to synthesize, and then filling out like a large, like, let's call it the Gildre Builder super data set, that can also be like, okay, what are the best things? So we can start, like, we as humans can obviously make connections where like intuition is saying, but as well, once the data sets get big enough, it's, quite possible to be able to, very like right away, be able to provide some terrific connections and some terrific value. And then I would also imagine that there are service providers that are building tools for, founders and entrepreneurs that would view, oh, this is a great channel towards, potentially selling our solutions and getting distribution.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, right, it's like, it's always funny. Like for me as a founder, right, and everyone probably has, like, I've gotten, dozens of cold outbound each day, right? We can help you with X, Y, Z. And I'm one of the people that, I enjoy getting it. If it's actually something that we need, or that is going to, like I said, solve that pain point and provide value, I'll be the first person to at least respond, right? Book that call. And a lot of our tech stack is off of that. And I think that, it's always sometimes you'll get a complete miss on the cold outreach, but for us, it's right. We really, as we build internally, we want to make sure we have a very strict, no sales, right? That's always been our thing. It's like, there's plenty of communities out there for pure networking, right? To drive leads, to drive conversion, whatnot. And not saying that you can't, we love when our founders of different stages and services and products work together here. But at the end of the day, right, it needs to come from a place of adding value, of thought leadership, of saying, hey, I am the right person that is qualified to support on this, right? And that's something you need at one point or the other. And when we find that when that happens organically, those are really the long-term relationships that we see last for years at a time. And we've been lucky that we've had a majority of our founders that have kind of seen that, right? And once they cross that, 5 million ARR threshold, yes, while our resources are pretty much geared in between that scope, they still have such good relationships with other members in Gildre, with us, that again, it makes sense to kind of stay and contribute that to that knowledge cycle.
On the topic of cold email, I'd like to just quickly say that this episode is brought to you by razrocket.com and gtmventures.com, which is an AI agentic cold email outreach solution for founders that are looking to either raise capital or find B2B clients. Cold email works if done properly. Mm-hmm. It also creates a moat for distribution if done properly, and also creates awareness, even if you don't get the clicks, the replies, or the ultimately desired outcome. But at least by sending out the message, you're pushing out a vibration and an invitation towards others to connect. And I feel, Brian, like we've seen a lot. We've probably done a lot of networking and in person and referrals, and that's all fantastic. It's human, it's beautiful, but there comes some social challenges and some expectations. It's complex. If you say, Kyle, like I know Tim Draper. Can you just introduce me to him, because he would be a perfect investor for my company. I might have just met you, or he might be a really good friend, but still, like that's like a kind of that's a big social capital play. Yeah. And some people expect that, like, oh, what's that one? Like, Kimball Musk, I have to meet Elon. You have to introduce me to him. I'm like, okay, calm down. And this is where with email and cold outreach, it's you're putting out the invitation for a very direct, focused connection. And if there's appetite, and if you're going to investors, like if you're raising a fintech business, a fintech SaaS in the AI field, like, okay, there is a huge amount of investors, and a lot of them are looking for deal flow, and they might not respond, they might not get it, but you might encounter someone like Brian who's like, you know what, I like getting these, and actually I've had terrific success via responding and validating and going through the email prospects that are coming through. So
you just need one sometimes, right? It's like, it's that chain where one introduction unlocks so many things. And to that point, right, it's like you have to earn it. I think a lot of networking that, and I'm sure you've seen it too, it's like, yes, don't get me wrong, right? I like when people are not necessarily aggressive, right? But it's like, hey, like, this is what would add the most value for me right now. This is how it could be helpful. Great, right? Whether or not, like you said, there's a lot of value to the social capital, to these networks that so many people have curated. And again, people genuinely want to work with people they trust and that they like. And you're not going to open the keys to the kingdom instantaneously, right? Whether it's, again, because you think there's going to be, hey, you need to provide good deal flow to the investor. And in turn, right, you want to make sure that the founder you're helping is whether it's getting funded, whether it's getting advice, whatever it is with the right help. And at the end of the day, there's just so many ways that unfortunately founders traditionally, and since the dawn of time, have kind of, there have been a lot of services and ways that have been predatory towards founders because of the dreams, right, that founders are kind of, and the risk and the vulnerability that they're putting out there to build whatever they're building. And we feel like it's important for us, right, and through, like you said, RasRock and the other companies, and really these kind of services and other partners, to be able to say, like, hey, this is the BS, this is the stuff that you need to be wary of, right? And this is the stuff that might add value. Because again, whether you are a bootstrap founder or or have some significant capital or a team behind you, it's either time or it's either money. These are the two biggest things that impact, I would imagine, right, 90% of the decisions that founders make, other than maybe culture and things like that. And so you just need to be super, super careful about it. And I think a lot of founders are, but I also think there's been never more solutions. There's more solutions now than ever. So it's kind of tougher to kind of weed through.
Yeah. And also it's like, I feel like there's a kind of a desire sometimes to delegate the responsibility of things, like, oh, if I just hire a VP of sales, like, sales will check. I'll get sales. Well, be careful. Like, hiring a VP of sales can oftentimes, like, you're taking a huge risk if you put the sales component into somebody else, and you should really fail fast if that works, because otherwise, you're putting it all in that.
That's bucket. That's a big.
Whereas, like, if you're spending $10,000 on a VP of sales versus if you're spending $10,000 on, like, highly customized, or $5,000 on, like, a highly customized B2B cold email campaign that's putting calendar meetings in your schedule, and you're, as the founder, the best person to be able to talk about it and do that, like, just consider that. Or same with fundraising. Oftentimes, like, founders might lean on investors, or might lean on on some of the other team members, BD, to try and do that. Like, no, we're in this age right now, and I think you'd agree, like, the founders, like, there's so much opportunity for solopreneurs to just go and crush. We have all the tools, like, just step in and try and do it yourself. Like, I literally coded a fucking wallet, like, literally an unbelievable wallet the other night, like, and like, it's something I've written books about, is wallets. And to be able to just create something beautiful and secure and powerful, like, in such, like, this would never had the opportunity to do that, but now there's this window, there's this opportunity, there's this golden convergence. It's taking
there you
place.
Go. There's the name
drop. All right, so as we wrap here, it's Gildre.com. Gildre's built for builders. Gildre's for builders.
You got it. Yep.
And for and if you are looking or growing, would you say Gildre membership or LinkedIn Premium membership? What's more valuable?
It depends. That's a good question. Like, I wouldn't say,
Gildre
I'd say at the end of the day,
I'm gonna just say it's Gildre membership, because it's more, it's there's higher touch point, more communication, but it might not be an either or. But if you had to decide between one or the other,
oh yeah, sure. And, I'll be biased, of course, but I would say it's not just a Gildre too, right? And we know without a doubt, right? And we have 3 different tiers, but, like, we overwhelmingly provide more than $59 or $149 or $349 of value, right, for our different cohorts and programs. But that's not. There's other phenomenal communities out there, and I'd say LinkedIn Premium, has its place. But again, as everyone on LinkedIn, right? There's some cringy stuff out there, and I'd like to think I don't contribute to it as much, but how many cold connections are we getting with no context, no messages, or like an immediate ask and things like that before there's any value, or even just a hey, right, being exchanged. And so at the end of the day,
it's just like a glorified address book.
Yeah.
And also, shout out to all the people that are watching on LinkedIn right now.
There you go, right? It's a great tool for certain things, but I'd say whether it's Gildre, whether it's any other type of accelerator, incubator community that has high touch point value, that, of course, I'll advocate first and foremost, right? Assuming it's the right group, but that's always going to be foremost. Hey, but I've had LinkedIn Premium for years and years and years. So there's always going to be some places for both, and it's just how you leverage it.
Great. And how can people find you and connect with you directly, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's the LinkedIn plug right there, right? So like I'd say find me on LinkedIn, Brian Lee for Gildre or Brian Connerly. And to me, I'm always happy to chat with just, again, founders. It's about conversation. I think a lot of times when I go to events nowadays, it's kind of wrap things up. It's, you go to them and you need to have a lot of intentionality with the people you meet, with the events you go to, the online chats you have. And as long as you keep that as a core pillar of your day-to-day, then it helps make a lot of decisions from, do I need to go to this dinner? Do I need to go to this thing? And it's not necessarily about protecting your peace, right? But it's like, as founders, you are doing a million things, right? How can you really focus on the things that will move the needle? And then everything else, right, is add-ons to building that network and that community.
Brilliant. Putting yourself out there. Tim Draper's best advice to me ever was just say yes. Whenever possible, just say yes. As long as you're not going to put yourself in danger, but you be conscious, but try to say yes. I feel like people that are too they've got this very clear, rigid plan for how things must go. It's like, open yourself, be receptive to the flows, into the opportunities. Tim, I'm waiting for my car. I don't know where it is. Hop in my car. Like, yes, let's go. And
there you go. And that's all. We'll have a separate check. So we went to the Draper Hero training out in San Mateo with one of my other companies, and yeah, phenomenal experience. But I'm sure we'll have, after the show, I'm sure we'll keep connected and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
All right, Brian. Well, it was such a pleasure. Thank you. Good luck. God bless. And may the future be golden, buddy.
Appreciate it. You too, Kyle.
Check it out. Gildre's for Builders, gildre.com. Okay, ciao for now.